Let me see. It says starting. So we are officially live. And so as soon as we get that first viewer out there that's coming right about now, we're going to begin chiming away. And so looking forward to getting your take on a lot of things. I saw your recent video today about the Cashless Society from someone's comment. So I'm going to definitely touch on that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Hold on a second.
All right, so we're live. We don't have a viewer yet, but if you want to start, we can just start chiming away and people jump in, because it'll be pre-recorded. So
that's great.
No matter what, it'll post as a normal interview for me and you. So we do have we do have people chiming in right now. So let's get started, Mr. Mannarino. So Gregory Mannarino, welcome to RTD Live Talk. It's been about a year since we've last spoken. So I'm glad that you accepted my invitation to join me. And so a lot of people may know you, but some people may not know you. And so your background, I'll tell you about what I know about you. You're a market analyst, a trader, author, commentator, a well-rounded individual, and a great guy who loves and very passionate about educating people. So that's kind of my subject matter on you. Give us a little bit for those that may not know you and things I may have left out.
I think you pretty much summed it up. First of all, let me just say I'm really happy to be here. I love this platform you have going on here. People need to pay attention to this. There's no doubt about it. I think for the most part, I'd be willing to bet that most of your watchers know who I am and what I do. I've been out here for, I don't even know how many years now. Is it 2000? I don't even know when. 2008, the market crashed. Maybe 10. I don't even remember when I started. Yeah. But, I just got out here kind of like you. Started talking about what's going on here in the world, the financial system, how twisted the whole thing is. I've been telling people since I sat down in front of a computer that they got to become their own central bank, bet against this debt, find a way to turn this system in a way that is good for them, because we all know it's rigged against us. The game is rigged hardcore against the average guy or girl who's listening to this. So, I've kind of made it a mission of mine, and I know it's yours as well, to make people aware of what is going on here, because at its core, it is so ugly and so twisted, and it's going to hurt a lot of people. And that's what always happens. It's a repetitive cycle over and over again. And for me, quite frankly, the 2008 meltdown was a real eye-opener for me. I wasn't the only guy that lost money in the market then. I'm going to admit it. I've admitted it 100,000 times. I got hurt in the market crash too. Some of my very best friends lost everything. And I started saying, holy wow. Someone needs to start talking about this, because this is just not right. And it's going to happen again. How do we know? Because it always happens over and over again. It's what they do. I don't know. It's outrageous.
No, sorry. No, I do agree completely. And so during 2008 little fiasco, I was actually from the outside looking in, because at that point in my life, I was actually, doing some traveling, and my life was a lot different than now. So now I'm in the mix of it all with, the house, everything. So I have a lot to lose myself. So that's what really drives me to learn more and try to educate and, help out my people as well, just because, no one saw it coming then. And now to see it coming really makes me want to just try to reach out to as many people as possible. So thanks for sitting down with me. Now, first question I got, for those that may be tuning in now, the goal is if you have a question for Gregory or myself, please call in via Skype. The number is right above the user ID is above my shoulder, and it's RTD Live. And so we can get to any questions if you have them. But other than that, Greg, the first question for you is we're 5 months into the 2017 year, and a lot of things are happening. A lot of things happening around the world. What are some things that have you concerned or excited all at the same time, or one over the other?
There's a lot of things that have me excited, I'll be honest with you, and I'm always looking for opportunity. Really, that's what this is all about. If I had to say what I'm really watching right now, it pretty much is what I've always been looking at. It's this inflating debt bubble. It's getting worse, and it's kind of ironic. Just about, I don't know, maybe half of an hour ago, I had posted on my social networks how even on the mainstream we're starting to hear issues regarding to the debt problem. We're starting to see social unrest all over the world. It's picking up everywhere. We got this stock market that is also in a bubble, and you're getting a lot of the mainstream pundits like today on CNBC. I watch this religiously, not because I learned anything, because I kind of want to laugh a little bit. But seriously, but even today, they're having a lot of people out there saying, "Hey, you know what? We might be around the corner from something. The market might be about to roll over." You look, I don't really listen to these people too much. I try not to focus on any one thing. But, you know, with the election of Donald Trump and seeing what the stock market has done since that time, it's gone parabolic. It's going to give some back. Are we on the threshold of something big with regard to a market meltdown? I'm not really sure, but I'll say what is kind of exciting is the cryptocurrency right now. Watching what's happening to cryptocurrency, I think this is a big tell. I really do. People are getting well, maybe they're getting smarter, I think, and they're understanding that they need to rethink the dollar. They need to get away from these fiat currencies that are being melted down by their respective central banks. And I think the move lately into cryptocurrency is, I mean, if it isn't a big tell, I don't know what is, that something is lying on the horizon. People are getting hip to what's going on here. They understand what world central banks are doing. They also realize that the debt-based economic model is really coming apart at the seams. It's just a matter of time before all of these fiat currencies achieve their real value, and the real value of, as all we know, is zero.
All right. Now, with speaking of cryptocurrencies, you know, I was actually looking into the one of the exchanges, and it's about $52 billion is now, you know, the market cap for, you know, a lot of the major alternative currencies. And so, how high do you think it can go before, you know, the powers that be or the Fed or government say, hey, okay, it's a real threat to the Federal Reserve note. Let's regulate it, shut it down, you know, create some type of false flag saying that, you know, it's ran by ISIS or something like that. You know, how high can it go before, you know, the powers that be say, hey, that's enough. Let's crack down on this, if at all.
Well, I think the way that the whole cryptocurrency thing is set up, it's going to be very difficult for the Fed to get in it, you know, because it's not a central thing. So it'd be very difficult for the Federal Reserve to get in there and try to, let's say, manipulate it like they do with the paper derivative of, like, say, gold and silver or whatever they want to do here. I think cryptocurrencies today are, despite what we've seen with Bitcoin and this run that we've had, I think these things are in their infancy. They are in their infancy right now. I think we're going to see I don't think we've seen anything yet with regard to cryptocurrencies. I think they're going to continue on the run that they've had. People are, again, getting smart. They want to get away from the dollar. They want to get away from other paper currencies. Look, let me just say this for anyone who doesn't realize this. What you're holding in your pocket there is nothing more than an unbacked liability that is being dispersed by a bankrupt government that have and it's going to get much, much worse. This debt problem that we are in is the greatest threat to humankind, bar none. We are going to face a resource problem, and all of these dollar-denominated assets, when the dollar and all these other things begin to achieve their real value, when people realize the debt can never be paid back, that it's all just we're in financial fantasy land. You can only imagine the types of inflation that we could potentially see. And you know, in other parts of the world now, we're already seeing this. We've seen it before. Now, with regard to a cryptocurrency threatening the dollar, here's my take on it. As a matter of fact, I wrote an article about this on Steemit maybe a couple of days ago. In order for any cryptocurrency to threaten the dollar, it would have to be a potential reserve currency. I don't honestly see that happening, and I don't actually want it to happen. I would like these things to stay out of the centralized banking thing and be kind of an alternative mechanism like it is now. We don't want any of these to become ruled by a central bank. If they're probably working on their own type of thing, I wouldn't be surprised. But the fact of the matter is these paper currencies, they're in a lot of trouble right now because world central banks have no alternative but to continue to inflate.
Right now, speaking of which, you know, central banks work on their own currency. What's the chance of, like, I know, for example, in India with the rupee, I've interviewed a couple of gentlemen actually that lives in India and some that's from India, and they mentioned how their goal was to remove the 500 and 1,000 rupee note to then force people to have everything done automatic deposits and done electronically on their behalf. So what's the chance that, say, for example, because I know there's been several central banks in Europe, if I'm not mistaken, that already have some things working for as the blockchain technology. So what's the chance that the Federal Reserve already has something lined up that where they can eventually say, we're already a digital cashless society, as you kind of hinted at earlier from one of your videos I watched. But yeah, what's the chance of like a Fed coin coming out where we're forced to use it and they try to run it parallel to the whole Bitcoin type of thing? And so share with me your thoughts on that.
Well, I've been saying for years that they're going to have to come up with a new plan. I'm not sure what that plan is going to be, but we do know this because we've seen this in history repeated over and over and over again. These types of schemes, these debt-based economic models, like every single modern economy has, at one point, again, the debt load becomes too great. And they collapse, they implode on themselves. Again, are we at that threshold? Are we seeing this rise in cryptocurrency because of a potential meltdown of the system? I think it's very probable. But look, world central banks so far have done things that I think nobody, including myself, ever saw coming. I mean, the quantitative easing 1, quantitative easing 2, Operation Twist, backdoor channels buying stocks, keeping precious metal prices suppressed through paper derivatives. I mean, you could go on and on and on. So they're really stuck, and they're going to have to come up with something else, because I sincerely believe that we are witnessing, for those who have one eye open, the death knell of the debt-based economic model. Again, this is why people are moving towards cryptocurrencies right now. This is why people are hoarding gold and silver, despite what they're trying, or what they are doing to the paper derivative. We should all be smiling about this, because the world debt is going to continue to get worse. So assets like gold and silver and cryptocurrency haven't seen anything yet with regard to their real value, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. And speaking of which, someone asked a question, and the question was, Gregory, what do you think will be the next monetary domino to fall?
I always, and I can't stress this enough, watch the bond market. And I tell people to do the same thing. What people need to know is they got to stop looking at the stock market. You want to turn on CNBC, Bloomberg, one of the mainstream financial channels, they're going to have you focused like a laser beam on what the stock market is doing. It's a distraction. All the real action is going to happen in the bond market first. The bond market, or the debt market, one and the same, is the biggest market of them all. Every asset, every single dollar denominated asset derives value from what's occurring in the bond market. So just watch what's going on, specifically with the 10-year yield, and you can have a good idea what's going to happen in the stock market before it even does. So, this is how I stay on top of it. I do not care what the stock market does on a day-to-day basis. I don't care if it's up 100 points one day and down to 100 the next. Don't matter to me. What I'm looking at here is what the bond market is telling me a little bit further down the line. And we are seeing some very interesting action here in the bond market lately. We've seen the 10-year yield coming up, a lot of cash coming out of the bond market. We've seen a lot of cash come out of a lot of assets. It's a very interesting flow here of money. We're seeing a big, huge hoard of cash just sitting in one spot, waiting for somewhere to go. We've seen some of that today. We saw a lot of cash move into crude oil, which finished up today at over 3%, I believe. We're going to see more of that. We're going to start to see this big hoard of cash move into other assets. I believe it could go back into bonds. It could go back into the stock market, but it's going to go somewhere. It could go back into precious metals, the paper derivative, the paper nonsense, but it's going to go somewhere, because we know it's there. I even said this yesterday. I told people, watch what's going to happen. If this big hoard of cash, it's going to look for places to go. We start to see it move into crude oil. I mean, these are not hard concepts to understand. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a question real quick. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Now, all this cash you're referring to, I mean, where's this cash coming from? Is this people looking for yield, or just trying to protect this somehow, and so they just shifting it around? And, is this a lot of cash coming from overseas, or, how to describe it? Like, where is this cash coming from? And, give us a little breakdown, because I'm not too familiar with it.
We've seen a lot of cash come out of the bond market, come out of the debt market. When cash comes out of the bond market, the yield rises. Okay, it's an inverse relationship. It's kind of hard to get your head around. So when you see that, you got cash that's coming out of the bond market. Now that's just kind of sitting over here. We've seen a lot of cash come out of the precious metals recently, and that's kind of sitting over here. We've seen the dollar value. People are getting dumping their dollars. So there's some other medium of exchange sitting over here too. So you got all of these pools, if you will, of cash waiting for somewhere to go. Look, for all I know, this cash could go to shorting the market if this thing does go down. Like we're hearing from the mainstream, a lot of guys are saying, oh, maybe the market's going to do something. I just posted on Steam like maybe just before this show, a particular pattern. Looks like a head and shoulders pattern developing, which is a bearish pattern in the stock market. Maybe that's a tell there where some of this cash is going to go. But this is the scenario. Let me make this as simple as humanly possible that people need to watch out for. At one particular point, we are going to see a huge amount of cash leaving. We're seeing cash leave the bond market now, and it's causing yields to rise. Okay, but this is nothing. When people get hip to the fact that this debt can never be paid back. The debt is no good. World central banks have been buying everything in sight. The Federal Reserve is talking about dumping their balance sheet. They're not going to reinvest into bonds anymore. This is going to force, or should theoretically force yields higher. When the yields go higher, let's talk about a worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, and this is what I believe is going to end up at one particular time. When, who knows? I'm not going to even speculate. But we're going to see a lot of cash rushing out of the bond market. When that happens, yields are going to spike. When yields start to spike, again, we go, all this cash is coming out of the bond market. Think about what I was talking about. Yields are going to go up. When the bond yields rise, okay, what does that generally tend to do? The opposite of what we see in the stock market. So yields will go up. Pressure will build up on the stock market. So now you got cash leaving the bond market. Now you got cash leaving the stock market. And it's going to be starting to pile up and pile up and pile up, just like we're seeing now. And then what's going to happen? All this cash is going to simply look for other places to go. It doesn't go to money heaven. Okay? It just is going to go someplace else. Yeah. And in my opinion, what we're going to see is a major move into commodities or into suppressed assets. Gold and silver, more specifically, I believe is going to happen, because this manipulation of the paper derivative cannot go on forever. Let them play their game. Let them play it all they want. I'm happy when I see the price going down, because I know in the end, the scenario I'm outlining for you is going to happen. So cash comes out of the bond market. Cash comes out of the stock market, looks for a place to go. It's going to go into commodities, including crude oil. It's going to probably go into cryptocurrencies as well. So again, we haven't seen nothing yet with regard to the realized true value of cryptocurrency, the realized true value of gold and silver. Silver's still my favorite asset in the freaking world. I think you know that.
Right. Yeah, I do know that. And so also, I want to just, give people, because I'm getting a few questions on the chat. And so if you guys are interested, you can feel free to call in via Skype and ask a question directly to Greg or myself if you're interested. So Greg, my next question for you is, you describe a couple of scenarios that can play out really bad for everyone with all the cash slushing around and looking for somewhere to go. That means that, the mainstream narrative of, I'm not sure if they even still use it, about being in recovery. I think, I think we've recovered, according to the mainstream media, or I believe. So are we in a recession? And what will be the catalyst to kind of really make the mainstream media say, okay, recession time, then what would the Fed do? QE5, and then what would be some tools? Let's talk about some tools that could come next as they try to prop this thing up or keep it from completely crumbling.
That's a great question. I've been talking about this too lately. You and I are so on the same page. It's like, it's scary. It really is.
I'm a follower of yours, and I learn from the best.
But I am of the belief that the Federal Reserve is going to have to act again. Let's talk about a few other things here. So they're talking about a recovery. What has really recovered here? Well, what we've seen is actually a criminal act right before our eyes, and no one bats an eyelid about it. And this really bothers me to the core of my soul, okay? What the Federal Reserve did, I want everyone to think about it. When the housing market melted down in 2008, people got kicked out into the streets. They lost everything. Some of my best friends literally lost everything in this, who got invested in real estate. So what the Federal Reserve did, I want everyone to pay attention here. What the Federal Reserve did is they went into the big banks and they bought up all of the toxic assets. You remember all these mortgage-backed securities that were called toxic assets? The Fed bought all that stuff, took it off the balance sheets of the big banks, put it on our backs. Okay, so then what did the Federal Reserve do? They hoarded all these mortgage-backed securities. People got kicked into the streets. A lot of people lost their lives. They became homeless. So what the Fed did is reinflate a housing bubble. They reinflated a housing bubble. So now those mortgage-backed securities that were once known as toxic assets are now worth something. Now they're going to dump them onto the market. They're going to sell these things at a profit. It's unbelievable. These people who got kicked out of their houses, they're the ones that should be benefiting from this. But no, this is a criminal act. They deliberately reinflated a housing bubble by inflating the debt bubble. When they reinflated the housing bubble, they had to inflate something else to pull it higher. That was the debt bubble, okay? The debt bubble has succeeded in reinflating a housing bubble and reinflate a stock market bubble. So we have these two bubbles on the back of the most biggest bubble of them all, the debt bubble. And all of these bubbles that we're seeing, we have bubbles to the upside, we have bubbles to the downside, inverse bubbles. These are going to burst at the same time, bam. And we are going to get, this bam here is fair value. Nothing right now in this market has a fair value. Everything has been twisted. Everything has been distorted by actions of the Federal Reserve. So when all of this does correct to fair value, it's going to feel like the mother of all collapses. But all it is this market doing its one and only job. All of these markets have one job and one job only, and that is to determine fair value, period. They're not being allowed to do this. And we've seen this before in history at the top of every single bubble. We've lived through a couple of bubbles. You're a lot younger than me, but I've lived through a couple of these bubbles. I've seen the same things over and over again, and we have it now. And I'll tell you one thing that's kind of funny about every single one of these bubbles, funny and yet sad. Not only do most people not see them coming, but most people think that this particular bubble or every bubble they're in is different than the one before. Oh, this is different. It's not going to end like the last time. And they always end the same way, and they get worse every single time. It's incredible. So are we in recession? Well, let's look at retail. Retail stores closing all over the place. People aren't spending money. They want you to believe people are out there spending. I'll tell you what people are doing. They're borrowing again, just like they did last time, against their houses, against whatever they can. Putting themselves deeper into debt, hyperinflating their own little debt bubbles. And it's going to end the same on a macro scale and on a micro scale. It's very sad. And this is why we're seeing this move to alternative investments. It's just the truth.
Right. Now, speaking of fail, during the last little hiccup we had there, the bailout concept was introduced to keep the banks, and keep them solvent somewhat. And so next time there's a hiccup, it's going to be a lot worse. And so the question will be then, how will the banks sustain themselves? And then will the Federal Reserve be able to, keep things afloat? And then that's the concept of bail-ins being introduced. And so play through some scenarios on how, the next crisis could trigger some bail-in concepts. And, for those that may not be familiar with that, give us a little rundown of what being bailed in means.
Absolutely. They have the potential to take your money. They can take your money and say you can't have access to it. See, this is the funny thing. People believe, and this is something else I even talked about today. People have no conception of how money works, how the banking system works, how the fractional reserve system works. They think when they log onto their computer and they're looking at their lovely screen, they say, oh, I have X amount of dollars. They think that money's really there. They think that money is really there. Money, currency. They think it's there. It's not there. It's all gone. 90% of it is not there. What's sitting in your bank account are digital IOUs. That's all it's there. So look, let me say this, just going back to the initial part of your question, because it's a great one. The issue here is, what is the Federal Reserve going to do in the next thing? They're going to add more debt. They're going to start buying more stuff. and add it to their balance sheet that is already larger than the GDP of most countries here. They're going to put more debt on our backs. They can't fix this. This thing has to have some type of complete meltdown and a restart. The debt-based economic model, which is the core of the problem, is at its end. It's run its course. We've seen this again before. So it is very possible that they not only do they take whatever cash you have, as in a bail-in here, but they may institute some type of a new currency. Say, okay, you know what? For every $100 that you had, now I'm going to give you 10 of these blah blah blahs. Now we're going to do all our transaction in blah blah blahs. So here's 10 blah blah blahs for your $100. It's insane. But the people that have these cryptocurrencies, well, they're going to be real happy. People that have gold and silver in that kind of a situation, well, they're going to be real happy because they'll be able to preserve their wealth in whatever new system is going to manifest itself after this one. Because this one here, and you can see it right before your eyes. You only have to have one tiny bit open. Is kind of we're at the end here, man. It's like
I do agree. Now, speaking of which, I have a question I'm gonna ask you from one of the viewers. But yeah, before I actually get into that about seeing what's happening, give me your thoughts on what's happening with all the activity happening out in China and Russia, and them bypassing the dollar. And one thing I like to remind people of the whole idea of rethinking the dollar is just if you Google the word de-dollarization, and how that was introduced not too long after the whole recession, Great Recession thing started, from just China basically saying we're done with the dollar. We're going to begin hoarding and importing massive amounts of gold. Share with me your thoughts on all the infrastructure stuff out there. They got the AIIB, they got the BRIC system, they got I think it's the CHIPS or SIPS transfer mechanism they have out there. So it seems like they might be prepared for the next system that they may introduce to be a part of. Give me your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. This has been going on. What you're talking about has been going on for years. We are starting to see, and this is no secret. I mean, anyone can look this up. Countries are, de-dollarizing, like you said. They're accepting other currencies in trade. So the dollar has been losing its reserve status for quite a long time. It's still the reserve currency, but it's not it's not king dollar like it used to be. And you can clearly see this by everything that you just talked about. So look, what they're doing is they're trying to get as many people they can to still hold this thing, because most people, look, I'm a pretty straightforward guy, and I tell it like it is. Most people, again, they're zombies. They can't walk and chew gum at the same time. They're unable to think outside the box, and they've been dumbed down beyond the point of FUBAR. So and this is how they are able to pull off what they do, because most people, again, they can't see anything right in front of their face. And if, God forbid, someone like yourself, someone like me, or anyone here listening were to tell someone what the truth is, they're going to get angry at you. They're going to call you every name that you can possibly think about. They're going to think you're out of your mind. Meanwhile, they're the ones that are absolutely clueless. You know what I think is going on here? This is what's going on here. And I talked about this, and I've actually gotten, well, some people angry at me about this, but I'm going to say it again right here on your show. We are witnessing a natural selection. We are witnessing a natural selection take place. That is, people that have of the intellect to understand what's actually going around them are going to be the ones that will have the best chance of getting out of this in a worst case scenario. And you always have to think about things in those terms. What could possibly be the worst thing that can go wrong? And be prepared for that. Because if it doesn't go that bad, well, then you're way ahead of the curve. But you have to be ready. You always have to have that high ground, like Sun Tzu, The Art of War. It's just so important to put this all together into a perspective that people can understand. And that's what I have been trying to do for the longest time on my channels and on my work, is say, okay, people, look, this is what's going on. Don't listen to what you're hearing on the mainstream, because they are clueless and they're reading from a script, unlike you or I that are just literally talking out of our heads, because we have a few functioning brain cells. But that's really the truth here. Be ready for anything. That's all I have to say, because a worst case scenario is a distinct possibility. And I think, again, with the rise of cryptocurrency, with the lengths that world central banks colluding with Wall Street banks have gone through to keep the actual price of gold and silver, the real assets, suppressed, there is something going on here. There's no doubt about it.
All right, I do agree. Now, speaking of which, I want to kind of shift the conversation a little bit. And also, we've yet to have anyone actually call in on Skype. So if you're out there and you're interested, I would love to hear your voice. I mean, we're getting a couple questions over there I'm going to get to eventually, but yet, the whole goal is to be a little bit more interactive. So I would love for you guys to give us a call. I got my Skype on. I'm waiting on somebody to call. So as you can see, Greg, I want a caller. I want someone to call in and hear someone's voice.
Call in. Somebody call in. Make this guy happy, please. Make him happy. He's a nice guy. Make him happy.
Well, thank you, sir. No. So next question is, and I'm not a trader, so I don't really follow the market in depth the way you do, or probably on a daily basis. But I read an article recently saying that I guess Apple is $800 billion. That is an $800 billion company, and it listed another couple companies that are humongous in size.
Yeah.
I'm assuming a lot of people are betting and investing in those companies. Are those viable companies that's going to make it through? To that next realm, monetarily wise, or what?
Well, this is what I would have to say about that. These companies that you're mentioning, and then there's a lot of them that do have value. They're worth something. So having an investment in these companies, whether their valuations are in the stratosphere, like they probably are right now, I think some of these companies are trading with PE ratios in the hundreds. It's unbelievable. Price to earning ratios in the hundreds. For someone like myself, who is a trader, I don't care what the PE ratios are. They could be 1 billion to 1. What I'm trying to do is just capitalize on small movements. As a matter of fact, well, I'm glad I'm out here. What I've been doing lately, instead of trading on a daily timeline, which is kind of what most people do, because there's no volatility in this market. We're at an over 2-decade low with regard to volatility. I've shortened my timeline to a matter of hours. So I can take advantage of these moves here. I'm kind of liking it, actually. I'll be honest with you. Trading inside the bigger moves, which we're not really seeing any of the market, is kind of a nice strategy. But some of these companies will not survive. Some of these companies, again, are just so overvalued that you have to wonder, what are people thinking from a long-term investment standpoint? But I don't even look at that. I don't think about that. It doesn't faze me personally. And I know this sounds kind of cold and kind of harsh. I don't care where the stock market goes. It can go up 1,000 points. It can drop 5,000 points. I don't care where it goes. All I want to do is get myself and my followers on the right side of that trade so they can capitalize on it. That's all I care about, because I'm playing the same game that the Wall Street banks are, in fact, way better than they are, frankly. And I want other people to do the same thing, because this is not, they don't have some kind of ownership on this. We can all do this. And I'm telling you, I'm going to use this system against these mother effers. Can I say that?
Yeah, free.
Bleep, whatever the heck, I'm going to use it against them. And I think that's what we all got to do. And we can do this by becoming our own central bank, by betting against this debt, by getting into cryptocurrency, by playing the market like I do, although it's a little more difficult than investing in either cryptocurrency or metals. I mean, what I do is not for everybody. There's a lot of risk. I have a bottle of Maalox over here. I got a Pepto-Bismol over here. You know what I'm saying? I'm drinking coffee all day long. It's insane. I'm waiting for my next bad habit to come along. I don't know what it's going to be. Probably, who God knows. But seriously, I forgot where I was at. But this is the truth.
That's fair enough. So I got a question for you. Someone asked about, speaking about stock or whatever, and someone says, a spunky, I said, Mr. Mannarino, where do you see mining stocks heading next? And will they be affected if the stock market turns around?
They've done a number on these things, man. Let me tell you, lately here. But I think that their prices are generally suppressed. Here's the thing when it comes to, people ask me about this all the time. I almost never trade them, and I almost never trade the paper derivative of gold and silver, because there's something going on there that's just it doesn't smell right to me. So there's no doubt in my mind that a Federal Reserve that does have a trading desk. Does anybody here wonder why the Federal Reserve has a trading desk? If anyone doesn't believe that the Federal Reserve has a trading desk, just do a little research about it. Greg Hunter did a whole interview with some gentleman who was talking about it recently. But the Federal Reserve has a trading desk. Why do they have a trading desk anyway? Does anyone want to ponder that? But look, why do they have a trading desk? For the same reason they have paper derivatives of gold and silver. Why do all these other derivative markets even exist? Again, so they can be played. So be very careful with mining stocks. Very careful. Don't sit there hoping you're going to see these things take off. I would suggest if you want to trade something, look for a Dow component or something to trade. If most people who follow my stock picks will realize just by looking at them that I trade large cap stocks. I trade some mid cap stocks, but mostly large cap for these very, very reasons, because it's very difficult to manipulate to any large degree a large cap stock. It'll keep you sane, okay? Unlike me, who's not very sane. But no, but seriously, if you want to trade a company that's not capitalized very well, you're going to see swings all over the place. And why? Because the Federal Reserve has a trading desk. All right, that should tell you all you need to know.
All right. Speaking of which, now let's get into a little bit of political issues. So most notable is the President Trump firing of the FBI director. And so give me your thoughts on that. Is that something that he was waiting up until this point to do and wanted to do it all along? And then what will be the result of that, being that Trump kind of ran on the idea of having a special investigator looking into former Senator Hillary Clinton's scandals. So do you see something like that coming sometime soon, or that was just all talk to get into the White House?
That's a good question. I'll tell you something. Whatever these politicians say, as you are well aware, if they even do 10% of what they say, it's a good thing. But with regard to Comey here, I think that the American people lost faith in him after the whole escapade with Hillary Clinton, honestly. So I thought he should have gone a long time ago. I'm surprised he lasted this long. I think what for me, look, when I look at anything happening here, I want to try to gauge how it's going to affect the market. That's really, look, if when you look at me, you're really looking at the stock market or these markets, because that's all I do. It's all I think about. I dream about it. I mean, it's the craziest thing. And I tell people, when you want to be successful in something in life, I don't care what it is you want to do. You want to be the best pot smoker in the world? Well, you become that thing. You want to be the best ditch digger in the world? You become that thing, whatever it is. So for me, I have become that. So how do I feel this is going to affect the stock market? That's the first thing that went through my head when I heard about it. What's going to happen to the market? Well, we had kind of a muted response here. The market, initially was under pressure today, but I'm not even sure that Comey had anything to do with that. I'll tell you, the market is waiting for something. That's why all this cash is sitting there, like I was talking about. It's just sitting there like in a cloud, just floating around, just hanging out up here, and it's just waiting for somewhere to go. Went into crude oil today. Who knows where it'll go tomorrow? But I can promise you, I'll be sitting in front of my computer screen trying to figure out what it's going to do. And I'll buy a call or I'll buy a put, and I'll be smiling at the end of the day, hopefully. That's really all I care about.
Right. Fair enough. Now, I want to ask another question. It was kind of in line with a question I actually had for you. And it's about, getting into debt and the whole idea that our educational system is designed around the higher education of taking on student loans. And so now we have $1.4 trillion worth of loans that, a lot of that's going bad. And so I have a question here from Michael, who says, what advice would you give for a young person? And he said, I just graduated with an economics degree and I am debt free. So he's debt free, but a lot of millennials / centennial, a lot of people, even a lot of, a little bit older people have student loan debt over their head. Now, being that it's a part of our paradigm of, the more education you have, the better off you'll be the better off you'll do in life. Give me your thoughts on how that, relates now and how that might not necessarily be the case in the future, or do you think it will be?
Sure.
Do you need a master's degree or a PhD to, make it in this system and in the next?
Exactly. Well, let me start off with this. I went to kind of a risky college. I went to Wagner College in New York, and I came out with a bill over my head that punished me for years and years. Was I rewarded from it from working? Yeah, I was, but it was something that was very burdensome. There's no doubt about it. And I think number one is the government needs to stay out of the student loan business here. Every time they get involved in something, the costs tend to skyrocket and everyone gets punished by it. But I'll tell you this, what people need to start waking up to is the fact that they do not really need to go to some Ivy League school here and go on for a master's or a doctorate, unless you want to become a doctor or a lawyer or something. I personally believe in the trades. I think people need to start working with their hands again. There's a mega shortage going on here in this country, and I think we need to make a move back to that. It's just terrible what's going on here. And I'll tell you what makes me kind of laugh in a lot of ways and make me cry at the same time is you see all the, people, let's eliminate student debt. I don't want to pay my debt back. What people don't realize is the debt can never be forgiven. It's part of the beast here. You can't just say, I'm going to forgive student loans, because that loan was taken out against somebody's pension, was taken against some other financial instrument. So by you trying to benefit by having your debt burden, taken off your shoulders, you're going to punish somebody else. It's the way it works. It's just a twisted system. So thank God this guy who just wrote in is debt free. It's awesome. I can't imagine what that must have felt like getting out of school, because I know when I get out of school, I jumped out of the first job I could find, and I didn't even care what it even paid, and that's really the truth. I remember just telling the guy who wanted to hire me, I'll take the job, because I was so burdened by debt. It took me I don't even know how long it took me to pay off my loan, but it wasn't fun. To have a loan like that. I think it's in a bubble too, and we're starting to see, like you said, people can't pay these things back. Why? Are we in a booming economy right now? I went out to dinner last night with my wife here, and we met this really nice waitress, and she's talking to us about how she just moved here from California. She's got a master's degree, and she could not find a job doing anything, so she had to take this job in the restaurant being a waitress. Look, good for her. She's doing something. But here's a woman here with a master's degree, loans up the wazoo. She's trying to support herself this way. And she was fantastic. If you're watching this, which I doubt, you were awesome. I gave you a nice tip, by the way. I did. She was great. But it's just crazy what's happening to people right now. My wife's a sister, just for an example. She's a college educated. She got a bachelor's degree. She's been looking for a job for a year and a half. Something that'll pay her a decent salary where she can actually live, not in a crap hole. It's the truth, but this is what people are getting stuck into. They're coming out of school with these huge loans. Do something else. Forget about this. Start getting into some type of a trade. I really think that's where people need to be.
Yeah, I know a couple of years ago, I'm not sure if it's still going strong, but it was a Fight for 15 movement. There was rallies all across the country, people trying to get, a couple more dollars, and they're trying to break down the difference between a living wage and just a regular wage. And so it looks like, just wages in general are not what they used to be. And if you do find them, then they're not really purchasing much anyway. So let's move on to another segment of our conversation here. And so this is basically just what comes to mind when you hear these words. I'm going to call off a couple words and just whatever comes to mind. And then we'll begin to, wrap it up pretty soon. Want to be respectful of your time. And so still waiting on at least one person to call in. But I believe they're going to call in.
They're shy. You can't blame them. I don't know.
No, but so because we're getting a good amount of questions over here. And so I got Brian here says, how do you call? So Brian, you would just log on to your Skype and look for RTD live, and then add me, and then you call in and ask a question, and you'll be on.
It's right over his left shoulder. You see the national debt? Look right above there, and you're going to see it right there.
So that's how you do it. So if you want to be that guy. So next question, I forgot what I was talking about. Question from here.
You even gave me some associations. You want to show some pictures too?
Actually, I have some.
I'm getting psychoanalyzed, aren't I?
No, I have some pictures, but I couldn't find them in time. So yeah, the next one is going to be COMEX or the Shanghai Gold Exchange.
Oh gosh, what comes to mind here? Meltdown. I mean, come on. I forget about this crap. People start getting the real stuff. What this? No.
No. Fair enough. I'll go to the next one. I'm not gonna say any names, but there's a famous commentator / author who believes in the special drawing rights. And so when what comes to mind when I say the word SDR?
Jim Rickards.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on SDR being the next reserve currency?
I don't think he's too far off. He very well could maybe right on this deal, because there's going to be something else. There's no doubt about it. We are watching the freaking death of paper currency that's unbacked, but it's backed by nothing. Period. It's backed by the military. That's what. All right, look. You want to know what backs the U.S. dollar? It's aircraft carriers, submarines. You know this. That's what's backing. Soldiers with arms and their lives and their blood and their guts and their families. That's what's backing the U.S. dollar. That's it, people. When you realize that, when you start to realize that that's what's backing the U.S. dollar, then you'll start to realize what's really going on here.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. I agree. Now, something that I believe is relevant to everyone, and I want to get your thoughts on it and how it will unfold. And that's when you say the word retirement portfolios. Most people are investing in conventional things that are paper products and things like that. So someone who may just be tuning in or not really understanding, the difference between money, currency, all that stuff like that, what comes to mind?
Get out of the dollar, man. Rethink the dollar. All this dollar denominated stuff. The dollar, again, is done. So if you want to sit there and put your faith in this, you really got to be nuts, I think. You got to look for alternative ways to preserve your wealth here in this environment. Again, people, the most simple thing I can say here is something I've been saying for a while, is we are now existing under the weight of the largest bubble the world has ever seen by exponents and on top of exponents. This debt bubble is going to burst. We know this to be a fact. How do we know this to be a fact? Because if you look back on history, you will see that every single bubble has burst before them without exception. Without exception, despite extraordinary measures, this is their words, not mine. No matter what they do, by any means, they try to keep this bubble propped up. At one point, there's going to be a breaking point. It could be tomorrow, could be next week, could be 5 years. It's going to happen. That's all we need to know. The longer, the better. So it gives us a greater opportunity to start to think about the concepts that we've talked about here today, to start to ponder what you should be doing with your dollars, with trying to get yourself out of debt here, get out of their system. Again, hence the rise of cryptocurrency.
All right, fair enough. The next words is something that I'm kind of hesitant to mention, but yet it seems like it's something that we're kind of being pushed towards, and the words World War III.
World War III has already started. I have no doubt about it. It's been going on for quite a while. We're just not seeing it here yet. Why are we not seeing it here? Well, I would be willing to bet that your listeners are a lot smarter than the people that are sit there glued to the government-run news agencies that will control everything you think, everything you see, everything you hear. It's incredible. So, the world is melting down around us. There's no doubt about it. There is no global recovery. If we were what I want people to think about real quick here, we've seen a commodity meltdown lately. It's no secret. Most of your listeners probably are seeing this, going, what's going on? Well, let me put a little light on that. How could we have a global recovery, an economic global recovery with commodities that are melting down? It's a big sign. When commodities melt down like this, it means the global economy is slowing down. There's a nice tip for you.
Fair enough. Hey, Gregory, looks like there's someone calling in.
I hear it.
All right, let's see what we have. A Brian calling in. Hello, Brian.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How you doing, buddy? Thanks for calling in. And my very first caller, so I appreciate you showing us some love tonight. Where are you calling from, may I ask?
I'm calling from Calgary, Calgary, Alberta.
I'm sorry, say it one more time.
I'm calling from Alberta.
Alberta. Okay, Alberta. So what is your question? What do you have in your mind tonight?
Well, I'm just wondering, in Alberta, we've been pretty much slaughtered with the downturn in oil. So our housing bubble has popped. Houses that were worth millions of dollars are now worth $3.
I lost you there for a second.
There we go. Okay, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I've got two things going on here at the same time. Let me just shut down the audio. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Great. Sorry about that.
No problem. Go ahead.
He's cutting out real bad.
Yeah, he said he has a couple things.
Better off typing it in.
There we go. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. All right. Sorry about that. I'm calling from Calgary, Alberta. We've had a downturn in our economy with obviously the oil price coming down quite significantly. Now in Toronto and Vancouver, they have a major housing bubble going on, and the big question is the home capital faked all the incomes for the people in Toronto for their loans. So they, you have a minimum wage job and now you own $1 million home. Is anything like that coming in the USA? Is my question.
I'm having a little. Could you just clarify what he said? I'm having a hard.
So what I got from that, Brian, was that the housing industry, the housing market in your area is extremely high, but people aren't making enough money to basically support to sustain that. It sounds like, is that correct?
That is correct.
And so, is anything like that happening in our area or out in your area, Greg, that you're aware of, housing market wise?
Well, let me just say this. I've been telling people for probably about 2 years that I believe that housing is in a bubble here in the United States. There's no doubt about it. Look, how do we determine that? Let's just lay down some groundwork here. How do we determine if an asset like a house is in a bubble? Because people throw this around all the time, like I don't know, like they throw around whatever they want to throw around. This is how you know when an asset like a house is in a bubble. Pretty simple formula. When an asset like a home starts to move above the ability of an average person's salary to buy it, you know you have a bubble. It's very simple. We saw the same exact thing happen the top of the last bubble, and we're seeing it now. We're seeing this in auto loans as well. So yes, there's no doubt about it. It's just kind of funny. Last week, I think it was, there's some new houses going up kind of where I live. So I said, just for fun, for kicks, let me just walk over there. I want to see what these things are going for. I want to see. So walk over there, and very nice home. I'm not going to mention the builder or anything. I don't know if I'll probably get in trouble. I have no idea. But I walk in there, and okay, well, it was a 1,700 square foot house on not too big a piece of property, actually really small. And the base price on this house was $340,000, and my hair almost fell out. I almost looked like you. It's like going to shave my head. I should shave it right now on your show. Wouldn't that be awesome? But
I'm sorry. What was the price of the house again, and what was the? I mean, I was surprising to you. So what was the?
1,700 square. It was 1,700 and change on a piece of property that wasn't really that big. As a matter of fact, there was maybe a 16-foot spot in the square foot in back of the home, like for a yard, and it was $340,000. And I was like, how are people buying these things? How are people doing this? Is here in Las Vegas. How are people affording this? This is not normal. This is not the price of a normal middle-class house where this house is being built in the middle-class area. There's other ones over there that are much more expensive in the same area. And I was with my wife, and we looked at each other and we were going, you've got to be kidding me. So, she's well aware that this is in a bubble too. My wife's, she's wild. Anyway. But truly, yeah, that's how you can determine if we're in a bubble, and we are clearly in a bubble, and it is a big bubble, and it's gonna present a lot of people with a lot of problems at one time. It's very sad.
All right, fair enough. So we'll take one more call if possible. Other than that, I have one more word to call out, and then I'll let you go, Greg. I appreciate you sitting down with me. The next one would be, give me your thoughts on the, and I think I actually this last time we spoke on for the interview, on Rethinking a Dollar interview, was give me your long-term thoughts. Because you mentioned, you kind of hinted at earlier that it could be a possibility of a bail-in and them issuing a new currency. So give me your thoughts when the Federal Reserve note is canceled, or is it expired, or there's a redenomination of another note of that sort, and what happens to those Federal Reserve notes, as far as them coming in. Walk us through some scenarios of what the, I guess, hyperinflation might look like. Would it be like Venezuela, where their just
eating cats and dogs in the street. They're
eating cats and dogs and all that type of stuff.
Cats and dogs in the street. It's unbelievable. This is a country that's rich in oil, and these people are starving to death. It's does anyone find that strange? I do, but again, it goes back to their political makeup as well. But again, I think what we all need to understand, and I think we do, at least at this point here, is we need to watch that bond market, because it's the debt market and the dollar are they're both units of debt. They're not units of wealth here. And when this debt bubble pops, it's going to pull the dollar with it. So could we experience a hyperinflation? Of course we could. I think that, again, that's a worst case scenario that people need to be prepared for. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Look, I'm going to tell you what I do. I think most people know this. I am a very diversified kind of person. Do I own dollars? Yeah, I own dollars. I also own cryptocurrency too. I also own a home. I also own other assets. I collect vintage guitars. I have a lot of assets. And you can't just be fixated on one thing. You just can't do that. If you put all your eggs in one basket and that one basket falls over, you're dead. You're frankly dead. So if people are stuck here in the US dollar, are stuck here in a 401k plan, and this whole thing does come down, well, they're going to be left desperate and destitute. When they try to get on the phone with their fund manager and with their 401k, they're going to say, oh, don't worry about it, just like they did last time. But this bubble is different. This bubble, they cannot reinflate like they did last time. They're out of bullets. That's what I would say. The long-term prospect here is the Federal Reserve and all of these world central banks are out of ammunition. So they're going to have to institute some new thing, force some other kind of crap down our throats, because that's what they always do, and people are going to march along like sheep and just take whatever they believe they're given with a thankful face, and then at the very end, no one is going to be held responsible, just like last time.
Wow, interesting, man. I hope you're wrong.
I hope I'm wrong too.
I hope you're wrong, but
I think we're really starting to see it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. But yet, just the things you describe. I mean, it's happening everywhere around us, and it's happening all throughout
history. It's just not here yet.
Exactly. So we have one more call, okay, and then I'll let you go, Greg. We have a Sam joining us. Hello, hello, caller.
Hey, let me just follow up real quick while you're getting on that.
I'm doing good. Go ahead, ask your question. How you doing?
This is your father speaking.
Yes, I know. How you doing, Dad? I appreciate you calling in.
To lend my support to the show. I'm glad that you're doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Our question has to do with the election that just happened.
You say
kind of question for comment. You say eerily similar this has been to the election we just had in the United States, except with opposite results.
I'm sorry, you're choppy. Say that one more time.
It has to do with the election in France.
Election in France, okay.
How eerily similar it has been to the election that we just had in the United States, but with the opposite results. That's
very true there. So, the whole idea that we had a moment of having someone who promised the world being a savior, their savior, Le Pen, I believe, didn't get the vote, and so was it Macron got the election or whatever? So, Greg, what's your thoughts on that, on the French election? That, real quickly, what's your thoughts on that?
I know this. What's that?
I thought that it would come out to be the same. I think that the whole world, the countries are ready for a change.
Yeah, I do agree.
Ready for a change, and I don't think France is going to see it. And how they're
I'm having a real hard time hearing.
Yeah, I am as well. So yes,
just taking over Europe. Middle East is taking over Europe now.
The Middle East taking over with all the refugees that's fleeing Syria.
There's something going on over there. There's no doubt about it. I mean, look.
I just wanted to chime in and add a little food for thought.
I appreciate that. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Enjoy your night.
Keep it up.
I will.
Thank you.
So the initial question was that, with the whole French election, it didn't turn out like, I guess, most would have imagined. So do you think it was anything faulty with that, or that's what the people really wanted?
Do I think that's what the people really wanted? Well, I can tell you this, that people that follow my work are very unhappy. Very, very unhappy about it. So, I mean, I think if I had a gauge, and this is just, it's a non-scientific poll, but from what I got from my followers, they are not happy. And they did not, they wanted this to turn the other way. So whether or not they got what the people wanted, I doubt it. People never get what they want usually. Even here, you know, look, I'm not saying that I first of all, I did vote for Donald Trump, and I would probably have moved out of the country if Hillary Clinton won. But look, he's not pulling the strings here. And anyone that believes that one person is pulling the strings, it doesn't understand that it's the banks. Wall Street runs the world. Wall Street runs the world. Say that over and over again, because that's the truth. Whoever controls all the money, whoever controls all the cash, controls the world, period. And I know this is going to sound kind of strange here, what I'm about to say, but I think when a president gets actually into office, they start to show how things really work. I'm going to say something right here on your show that's going to get me hated in 5 minutes. I voted for Barack Obama the first time. Okay, I really did. I believed in this man. I thought he would. Maybe I got brainwashed. Okay, maybe I did. I lost my mind. I don't know. Maybe I fell under his kind of like spell, how he spoke. I don't know, but I did vote for the man. I thought he wanted to make a difference. I kind of really felt that way at the time. I've obviously come to know that things weren't what I thought they would be, and maybe we'll end up in the same boat here. But the presidents don't pull the strings. Their strings are being pulled, no doubt about it.
I do agree. Well, Gregory, thank you for joining us. I want to leave you a chance, you know, to give people more information about, I guess, your Steemit is up and running. So give people a way to connect with you there as well, to be a blessing with you there. Any last thoughts you may want to share with those that may know you, those that may not know you?
Sure. I've been pushing this Steemit thing since I actually got on it. Many people have been telling me, first of all, Steemit. It's a social network, kind of like Facebook. However, you can earn cryptocurrency called Steem simply by posting. A lot of people are saying, oh, it's got to be some kind of scam. It isn't. It's a real thing. Go over to Steem, start posting, and you will earn cryptocurrency. It's a pretty straightforward thing. Go to Steem, at Market Report. That's my tag, call sign, whatever the heck you want to call it. I've written a whole bunch of articles about Steemit and the platform. And again, this will give you an opportunity to earn cryptocurrency without any real investment other than your time. Why shouldn't we be paid for our time, for our posts here? I think this is the future of social networks. You want to post on Facebook? You want to post on Google+? You've got to be nuts.
All right, so great. Quick question. Do you have time for one more call?
Yeah, sure.
All right, here we go. We have a Chris calling in. Hello, Chris. Hello? Hello, Chris. How you doing, buddy?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Where are you calling from? You sound like you have an accent, I believe.
Yeah, here I'm in North Carolina.
North Carolina. Okay. What's your question?
So, Greg, first of all, I'm hearing the thing twice. I'm sorry. I'm just going to talk.
Okay.
So Greg.
Yes.
What is going to happen if we have like a bank systemic collapse with all the assets? So say I own my house, but I still owe like $100,000 on it.
Mm-hmm.
If the bank goes away, the bank still has the note, so I won't have the house. What's going to happen with that? Thanks so much for taking my call, and I appreciate everything you do, Greg. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks for calling, buddy.
That is a really great question, and I'll tell you something. I've talked about that exact thing with Greg Hunter. Most of you guys know he is USA Washoe. He firmly believes that people that are stuck in that kind of situation are in a lot of trouble. I really don't know. I think that there will be some surviving banking system, and they'll probably have your note on the house. And they're going to try to collect on it. There's no doubt about it. Whether you can pay in a collapse moment like that, in a worst case scenario, I believe you're gonna be stuck. I hate to have to say that. So start thinking about ways to grow your wealth. Start thinking about ways to protect what wealth you may have. And just look, we all gotta hope for the best. We gotta hope that something is going to happen that will prevent a worst case scenario. I'm not saying we're going to get a worst case scenario. I'm just saying we need to be ready for one, always, just in case, period.
Well, fair enough. So Greg, this will be the last one. And so I thank you for sitting down with me. Definitely enjoyed my conversation with you and a chance to have those that called in and those that asked questions. If I didn't get to your questions, I apologize. Just ask. Leave it in the comment section below, and hopefully Greg get a chance to follow up the video and just answer some questions if you like to. So other than that, Gregory Mannarino, thank you for sharing your wealth of knowledge with us. Definitely we'll continue to follow your work. You do a great job of keeping it real and keeping us informed. So thank you for what you do, buddy. I appreciate it.
Thank you, too. Really appreciate the show. Love being on.
All right, my buddy. Thank you.
Good deal.